This cryptology may be a little bit harder to work out exactly what's being said here. Let's break down some options. Well, it could be just straight down the barrel brain prion in swine, rabies or mad cow disease. It could be some respiratory disease like in bird flu. And it could go in many multiple neurotoxin, hemotoxin, as far as the venom. Here's what we know. Generally, if it was a pyramid scheme issue, you'd need to look at this and say, well, some kind of contamination, much like a brain prion, they're eating each other, or they just drop in the field. And whatever the clip art was for this, there was a very specific little clip art I clicked on for it in there. So, I mean, generally I would do this to all those other ones I'd like to talk about. The hostage negotiations, a little nuclear right now, right, wrong, do I agree, do I disagree? Oh, great, you got a 4-year-old little girl out, fantastic, that's awesome. Who's paying for it? I mean, that's the 3M for you. Like Amp Lejeune on the hearing test for the military about, well, I didn't get no feedback from it, so obviously when the camera's out, whether I have rules to do it or I'm signed on to a company's nonsense about what's going down, there will be an environmental condition that says even if it did have, swine flu or something like that, and it was the turds or they're eating each other, biting each other, the contamination inside of there, 1% E. coli or the Leviticus technique, Corinthians, sheep's blood and the kidney fat, or the cleanliness 1% E. coli transmission on Corinthians, bolt cutter technique, stone cutters technique, how that generally could play into hidden variables. Those are real company indexes that have problems while dealing with how it affects into the human, whether direct contamination, pork portfolios, all those things are going to subtly move in some degree because this has went down and I don't know who was on that farm, what was their original conditions, if they expected on A breeding standards. I don't know if you ever seen it in cow breeding, some husbandry numbers. It's a bit of inbreeding, but you got to figure out how to do the math so it's more like a clone than it is an inbreeding program. You can imagine some chain whip is going to come down the range later about that's night enticing frequency, and when it starts to go out, it's something that you can't really address like that because everybody still needed that hard line like that, and you can't just drop back over. So you imagine a classroom full of kids or John Boy out on the farm. Both of those could be models great for contamination and dealing with it. Subtly inoculate the chicken pox. That I just want to touch on the satire of this because without going to every single pig farm in the region, getting out the maps, I'm going, well, this is every single site. I mean, they do have some form of 1% E. coli transmission because regardless of its photon or gluon, pork, beef, some grain issues, that whole military science and collective team that you have on that, maintaining the operator is more of an important calculation than necessarily it's summing down to this right now because, well, there's a lot of one little bacterias and prions and viruses involved.